Welcome to Webinar Wednesdays. With me today, we have our product expert, Garrett Trod. As well, we have Sandro Yarzin, our client relationship manager, and myself, co-founder of Uplifter, Jackie Kwan. So today we are going to talk about everything that has to do with evaluations and goal tracking. So we're very excited. I know that this is a topic that a lot of different clubs would like to dive into, and it's also a feature that not all registration systems definitely have, and definitely not to the robustness that we've provided in terms of being able to handle a number of different sports and a number of different types of goals and tracking. So with that aside, I'm going to hand it off to our wonderful product expert, Garrett Trod. How are you doing today, Garrett?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, thank you very much.
Are,
How are
are,
you?
are you excited to pretend to be a coach today?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, I'll try and coach you and tell you all the things that you're not coaching correctly.
Perfect. Thank
Because
you. That
I'm a
was
coach
exactly
too,
what
of course, yeah. Anyways, I'll let you take it over, and I'll jump in when I have things that might be interesting to say.
Perfect. Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Today, as Jackie noted, we're going to go through the evaluations tool. But before we do that, we want to set some groundwork here and just make sure that everyone is on the same level with certain elements. To begin, we're going to talk a little bit about categories and category levels, just to sort of remind us of how these function. Your categories and category levels, which are found under settings, categories, these will dictate the way that your curriculum is structured. Now, categories will be on the left-hand side and category levels on the right. And within each category, there's different category levels. And when you create programs, these will actually be based off of the categories and category levels that you've set in your system. And this is important because in a little bit, we're going to be utilizing a feature called tagging, and we'll want to make the most out of that feature. So when we're talking about the sort of structure of categories and category levels, we're going to take a look at this lovely little diagram here. This actually gives us a sort of bird's eye view of how things are built within Uplifter. You have your category, which I'm going to bring this to the side here. You have your category. These would be the guys on the left here and there. And then you have your category levels. Within each one of these categories, we have our category levels. And then within these category levels, we have our programs. So if I were to target one of these programs, just be that individual one. If I were to target a category level, it would be any program within that category level. If I were to target a category, it would be any one of the category levels within, which would also then be all the programs. Now, when I'm talking about targeting and things like that, that may not be 100% clear right now, but we're going to look at that in more detail and talk about how that's going to actually impact your evaluations. But I just want to set the groundwork for this and be mindful of how your categories and category levels are set, because there's some shortcuts and some tricks and tips there that we'll talk about. Next, within the categories and category levels that you have set up within your system, it's probably true to say that you've also structured some requirements as well as possibly even some achievements within this as well. Now, for CanGym or CanSkate or really anything within your curriculum, it's generally true to say that there is a staggered progression. So here you can see actually visual representation of that. And as people are progressing through this curriculum, they'll have what's known as achievements within the system, but they'll also complete these category levels as well. Now, you can see within red here, as I've expanded this, that there are requirements both for the completion of Burgundy, the category level, the previous category level, as well as an achievement called Burgundy Badge. Now, these two, this is a little bit redundant. They're essentially parallel with one another, but your category levels will be the structure of your programs. Your achievements can go beyond that. So in this particular instance, we have a Burgundy Badge achievement, and that's great. That's a great way to indicate, yeah, you know what, you've achieved this, but it is, again, synonymous with this completed level. So you might have something that goes beyond that Burgundy Badge, like you've done something extra beyond that. This is why I don't write for the dictionary, because I, achievements, it's an achievement. Um, so this can be pretty much anything. Oh, Jackie, go ahead.
I was going to say, one way that you might want to think about it is that there might be certain aspects where a category level might be an encompassment of multiple achievements. So, for example, with skating, especially in Skate Canada's Learn to Skate program, a particular category level or an achievement might actually be the completion of an agility, balance, and control. So, one of the great things about Uplifter in terms of when you're organizing your category levels and your achievements and your goals is that you can actually make your own curriculum. So if you as a gymnastics club decided that you've got crickets and you don't want crickets level 1 to proceed before they finish their first 2 badges, you can certainly make that happen because you're kind of mixing badges together, and then maybe their next level, like the frogs, might be 2 other badges. So you can certainly play with all of those elements as you like, and that gives you as a club the flexibility to use category levels and achievements and goals to the full customizable extent that you'd like to run as a club.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now, if you do want to customize the categories and the structure behind the category levels, that's all done on this page here. You can add as many categories as you'd like, and with each one of these category levels, you can add as many category levels as you would like. And then you can introduce the structure like the requirements, etc., which we won't dive into just today, but we have on past webinars if you're interested. Now, when it comes to achievements, you can create those as well, just as Jackie mentioned, and these are done through settings, achievements, and on this page, you'll be able to create as many achievements as you'd like. You can see a lot of these are based on the CanGym achievements, which we'll talk a little bit about in just a second here. But you can add a new achievement, and you can set that up to function however you want. And you can tag, which we'll talk more about in just a little bit. You can tag essentially a category or category level here. If you're ever wondering what you should be tagging in certain places, and this is actually a great example of this, is like, I'm going to create an achievement called Done It All. Congratulations, you've done it all. And what I might want to link this to will be dependent on what I'm talking about with this done it all. So when I hover over this, this will actually tell me a little bit about what I can tag here. So for instance, it says create custom tags to categorize your achievements, or and each tag that you add, will be used to group these achievements in particular profiles here. So this is actually talking a little bit about the list view, which we're not going to be looking at, but when you go into a participant's profile and you enter into their participant profile here, I just went to people and accounts, participants, and I selected a random participant, you'll actually have a list view where you'll see all your achievements that they've achieved based off of the way that you've tagged them. So again, we're not going to dive too deeply into that. That is definitely something to consider as well. So next, we are going to move on to program grouping as our final piece of the reviewing puzzle here. This brings us to products and classes. And we're going to pop into our kids program, Kids Tumbling 101. Now, on this program here, when it opens up here, we have the program information, of course, and as we scroll down, we'll then also see a list of all the participants who have registered into this program. Now, as you may have seen as we sort of passed here, there's also the ability to pull a CSV report, so if you want to pull a report on who's in this class. But most importantly, what's happening here is all of these participants are presently ungrouped. And what that means is they're all just sort of, they've registered, but no one's really organized them. But what we can do is select create a new group here, and this generates a new group for us. It defaults to a new group 1, but we can call this whatever we want. Maybe we want to call this red group. Maybe we want to spell group right. There we go. And so once I've created a group, I can then simply drag and drop these participants into the group that I want. And maybe we want to create a new group, and we'll call this guy blue. I can't type. Anyways, I'm going to put those into blue group. And when you're happy with the groups that you've structured, you can scroll down to the bottom and select Save Group. Now, we'll see how this is going to impact our evaluations in a little bit, alongside how all those other elements are going to impact our evaluations as well. To begin with the evaluations concept, however, let's talk a little bit about what evaluations are. Essentially, evaluations are a predefined test within your system. They can test whatever you want them to test. They utilize something called goals, which sort of aligned with, questions on a test that you might have in school. So people need to meet these goals, and if they meet those goals, then they pass the test. Now, you can actually group those goals into sort of subcategories, which we call goal groups. And so you can sort of organize and specialize certain parts of the test based off of the varying goals that you have therein. Now, to find evaluations, you'll navigate to Settings, Evaluations. And here, if you already have evaluations listed, just like any other manager page within the system, you'll see an overview of those evaluations. If you don't have any evaluations just yet, you can select to add evaluations through the toolbar here, and then we'll talk about that in just a little bit. If you are affiliated with Canada Gymnastics or Skate Canada, then you'll also have the option to import. Now, importing, we'll take a look at in more detail a little bit later once we understand the core fundamentals of evaluations. But essentially, this allows us to import predefined evaluations for Can Gym and Can Skate so that all the hard work's done for us. Now, mind you, the tools are all here for you to craft and create your own evaluations. So if you want to go beyond Can Gym or Can Skate, you definitely can. And all the tools are here and ready for you to use. Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about creating an evaluation from scratch. We're going to select Add Evaluation from the toolbar here, and this is going to bring us to the evaluation creation page. Now, like many of the other elements within the system, you can add a name to this. So this might be our first eval. And then you get to select your publishing options. Now, publishing options are going to be dependent on how your club does things. So for instance, you might want to publish results to a brand new evaluation every single time. That is a really clean way of dissecting and sort of bifurcating your different results of the evaluations, but it can also lead to very long lists. So that might not be the best option, depending on how often you guys are evaluating. Next, we have publish and include the results from the last evaluation. This means that if I published something a week ago and I then do an evaluation today, if I have this option selected, when I select to publish, it's going to take the results from the last evaluation and bring them up to the evaluation today, and then add on everything that happened today so that I have last week's stuff and this week's stuff all in one evaluation. So that's a nice clean way of doing things. It does actually leave intact, if I'm not mistaken, Jackie, it does actually leave intact the previous evaluation, but it just brings the marks up into the newest one.
Are you asking me and quizzing me?
I was waiting for you to be like, no, that's not how that works.
No, I think you're good. You're good.
Okay, good. All right, so next we have the published results to the last evaluation, which essentially in that same scenario where I have an evaluation last week and I create one today and I click publish, instead of creating a brand new evaluation, it's going to take the marks that I took or that I created today, and it's going to save them over the last evaluation, including the last evaluation's marks as well. So it just sort of piles on to the same evaluation, as it were. So if you do want to keep just one evaluation per evaluation option that you guys have, that might be one of the better options for you guys. Now, we skipped over the unpublished goals option. Here you can see there's a checkbox next to allow members to view unpublished evaluation goals. What this means is when you guys are performing evaluations and you click save, which we'll see that process in a little bit, when you actually click the save button, that actually sort of creates a temporary or a sort of a review version of that evaluation. And from there, you as administrators or coaches and instructors, you can choose to verify those marks and then publish. And that act of publishing actually pushes it to a public status where your end user can then log into their own accounts and see those evaluations. But if you would rather not take that step, if you're okay with users seeing the evaluations even before you've published, you can check this box off and they'll be able to see that as soon as you hit the save button and you no longer need to hit publish. We'll see that in a bit more detail in just a bit. Next, we have our link to section. Now, in the link to section here, we'll be able to specify what classes and categories, etc., can actually access this evaluation. Maybe it's true that you have kids and adults, maybe a competitive, and you only really want your kids to have access to this particular evaluation. Maybe our first evaluation is really actually talking more to the kids that are involved in it. That's their first evaluation. And so maybe you just want to mark this off as your kids, or maybe you just want this to be Can Gym specific or Can Skate specific or what have you. You can absolutely do that. Just like anything else within the system, if you want to tag something, you simply begin by typing. And this is where we bring back this chart, because if you want to tag specific programs, you can get specific. If you want to tag something more broad, like a category or category level, you can do that as well. Let's take, for instance, this program right here that we're talking about, Kids Tumbling 101. Now this program, if we go into the edit page here, this is part of the kids category, and it's part of the crickets and rabbits category levels. And so I have a couple of options. If I want the evaluation that I'm creating to be super specific just to this one program, I can actually enter in this program's name. I might want to grab this SKU actually. Get out of here. So I can actually enter in the SKU and say, you know what, only this program has access to this evaluation. That seems a little silly, so maybe we want to get a little bit more broad. We can grab one of these category levels and say maybe just crickets has access to this. And by marking this category level, crickets, any program that has this checkbox here would have access to it. Any other checkboxes or any other categories would not have access. Now this program having both of these check marks would technically have access to this because it does have this here. Were this program like this, it would no longer have access to this evaluation. Last but not least, I can also tag a category. By tagging a category, I therefore tag all the category levels within and therefore all the programs within. So that's probably the most convenient method. And so in this particular instance, I would tag kids. And there we go. Now every program within the kids category will have access to this evaluation. Now, if it's true to say that multiple categories should have access to that, totally fine. You can simply begin typing and adding even more. You can add as many categories or category levels as you'd like. You can be as broad or specific as you'd like to make sure that they all have the right access. When you're happy with that link to section there, you can move along. And don't forget, if you're not sure or you're coming back to this in a month or two and you're like, wait, what did he say about that? You can always hover over these little question mark icons and they'll talk a little bit more about what you might want to tag here. You can see tag each category or category level that should have access to this evaluation. Next, we can move along to the actual evaluation itself, the core elements. For this, we're going to talk about goals and goal groups. Like we talked a little bit about that concept of a paper test. Maybe we're talking about a math test. You'd have a header called math right here. You would have subsections within that. Maybe you have a trigonometry section and an algebra section. And then within each one of those sections, you have the actual questions that they need to answer. Very similar structure here. You'd have your header, your title. You'd have your different subsections, your goal groups, and within each one of these goal groups, you'd have your goals. So in order to add goals, we first need to add a goal group. We're going to select add a goal group here, and we can then specify the name of the goal group. So let's say our first goal group. And now, once more, we get to tag. Now we're actually going to come back to the tagging here. We're not going to tag anything here just right now. And actually, no, my apologies. We're going to tag, let's do kids. There we go. Nope, I've changed my mind. We're gonna remove that, and we're gonna hit save here. Fantastic. So we've added a goal group, and we'll come back to the tagging of these goal groups. So we've added this in here, our first goal group. We can expand this as we like, and there's no goals presently within it. As you can see on the right-hand side, we can delete, we can edit, and we can add. So we can edit the name if we want to come back to the name. But in this particular instance, we're gonna add a goal group, or add a goal to our goal group. Sorry. When we do this, we see our huge list of goals. Now you might be like, well, where did these come from? These actually stem from settings, goals. Now within the system here, if you've performed an import, that will also import all of the goals associated with the evaluations. So if you're doing the import for Can Gym or Can Skate, you can rest assured that all the proper goals are in there. But if you're making your own, or if you're augmenting those imported evaluations, you can absolutely come here anytime, settings and goals, and you can edit ones that already exist, or you can create brand new ones for your use. So maybe I'm going to select add development goal here. And here I can name my goal. So my goal. And now I get to also tag it. There's tagging all over the place. Now, again, if you're ever wondering what you can tag here, hover over this little question mark icon, tag each category this goal should be aligned with. Now, in this particular instance, we're creating an evaluation that's associated with kids in Canada. And the goal that we're creating is associated with this evaluation. So we want to associate it and link it to the same categories here. So kids and Canada. And again, simply begin typing. The system will offer you things as you type. And if you don't see what you'd like to see here, so for instance, category levels were only shown 5 out of 47, it's a lot of category levels, you simply begin to type further, you type more. So the more specific you are, the more specific the suggestions are. So can, and then that narrows that down for me. Next, we get to specify our duration. Now, how long is it expected of these users to practice or perform this in order to actually accomplish this goal? More often than not, probably 99% of the time, it's going to be 1 day. But as you progress with using the tools within Uplifter, you might start to begin using this for customized goals. This is especially true for competitive or anyone who has a more focused group where, maybe there's only 2 or 3 kids per class for a coach who's very focused on them. They might actually start to develop customized goals for these users. And so that might change. And maybe it's actually, you know what, we're going to work on this for the next week, and we want you to accomplish this by the end of the week, sort of thing. So you can actually specify exactly how long it's expected, you expect them to take in order to accomplish these goals. Next, we have the evaluation method. Again, more often than not, you'll have a true false. They either did or they didn't do it. True false also has the ability to introduce an attempted option as well. So this is actually true false and sort of true. And so what that's going to do for you is anytime that you check the box off, it's going to go true. You check it again, it's going to go attempted. Sorry about the reading there. It's going to go attempted. And then if you check it one more time, it'll go back to false for you. Next, we have an integer. This allows you to enter in a number. Here's the minimum value they need, the maximum value they need, and then the passing grade. Now, integers are solid numbers. They can't have a decimal point. So this needs to be 1, 2, 3, etc., but it can't be 1.5, etc., what have you. However, if you do want those points, if you do want to get refined with those numbers, you can select a decimal number instead. And that allows you to do the exact same min and max values as well as the minimum passing grade. But you can specify, 1.5, 2.5, whatever you guys want to do. Last but not least, we have a grade, and this is used probably more predominantly in the gymnastics community than the skating community, but you can actually mark off various grades. So here's our A grade, and it can be really anything that you want. So maybe actually B is the first pass here. And as you begin to enter in these grades, so this is going to be the name of the grade, and this is the actual value that they're going to see. You can also mark the first pass. So maybe A isn't the first pass, maybe B is the first pass, and C is technically a failure, but that might not be true. Maybe you're going to throw one more item in there. So there we go. So this would be very similar to a school grading system, but you can name these anything you'd like. And I know that gymnastics, if I have the right ones in here, I do not. Never mind. Okay. Yes. Oh, go ahead, Jenny.
I think they're imported a little bit later, but a couple of different ways that you might see this work would be, for example, in skating, very often you might actually evaluate a skill with some of your more competitive or advanced skaters by using what we call grades of execution. So you might set up a grade to be from -5 all the way up to 5. So and giving each of your skaters a particular level in which you would consider this a pass. So they have completed this if they hit a 0 GOE. So you can do certain things like that. With gymnastics, with the CanGym program, I know that we have the different elements. And actually, if we can actually import an evaluation. I can walk you through that, or Garrett will walk you through that in a minute, where they might be using mastering learning and those as grades as opposed to just a strict true-false checkbox pass or fail. One other thing, sorry, Garrett, I'll get you to pop that development goal back open. One of the things that's very different about tagging in Uplifter under the goals and the achievements and the evaluations is that you can actually create in these elements just plain old text tags. And this allows you to sort of group some of these goals or achievements together so that you can actually group different learning elements. So for example, in skating, you might want to say, this is a jump. So this skill that I'm trying to teach them would be grouped as jump, so that when you're actually creating your evaluations, you can very easily find those goals that are tagged as a jump. For example, in gymnastics, it might be a particular element, it might be a floor routine, it might be something on the bar, different elements that you might want to tag, so that you can very easily group your goals and your achievements very quickly to divvy up your data later on some of the other screens that you have. So, sorry, Garrett, go ahead.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. So the last element that you'll have available to you as well is the goal description and or video. Now, when you, we'll see this in action in just a little bit here. What I'm going to do is actually go to one of our existing ones here. We've got our log roll. And I'm going to edit this in here. Inside the log roll, you can see I tagged the category level. It's going off for 1 month for whatever reason, and it's a true false. But down here in the goal description, I'm going to enter in a video so that my coaches, my instructors, or even, you know, if I want to show the user how to perform this specifically, then I can rely on this video. So what I'm going to
So that
do
you don't have
is,
to do it yourself, Garrett?
yeah, because it's not going to be graceful. So yes, in order to do this, we're going to go to this image icon right here, and let me zoom this in. So we're going to go to this little image icon. This is our media, and we're going to go to embed video, and wherever your video happens to be, you throw the URL in here. I've found one just off screen here for the log roll. I'm going to paste that in, and I'm going to insert this video. And so now I have this video available to me. I'm going to hit save on this. I'm going to zoom back out here.
What's great with Uplifter in terms of being able to embed that description, I know there's a lot of other software out there that allows you to add a video, but with Uplifter, you can actually add anything that you want. Maybe it's just a description. Maybe it's before we assume that this goal has been achieved, we would like the skater, the gymnast, or the athlete to meet these benchmarks. If you're performing dance or ice dance or a particular sequence, you can even upload an image of maybe the step sequence or the steps that are required to be completed in order to illustrate these elements to the athletes. So we're providing you with a great amount of flexibility in terms of how to add detail into this description or video element. With the embed code, just keep in mind that we automatically embed any URLs from either Vimeo or YouTube. If there are any other public video elements that you'd like us to include as part of that parsing, feel free to send us an email and we can take a look and see if it's viable. Even if it's not any of those public video services that you might use, probably have some sort of HTML embed code, which you can very easily add by manually adding HTML. Garrett's just going to show us how to manually add HTML. You can actually see the source code, copy and paste that HTML into the source code box, and that'll automatically embed the video into the description area here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So as Jackie noted there, this is actually a WYSIWYG editor, so you can enter in whatever you want. Links, anchors, all kinds of stuff there. So yeah, so I'm going to zoom back out here. So we're at 100%. Fantastic. So once you have all of your goals in place, you're happy with everything that you've done, you can then, of course, return back to the evaluation. You can begin to add these goals. You probably actually want to create these goals before you start your evaluation, but now you can return back here and we can begin to add goals. And very much like pretty much everything else within the system, you just add this little plus icon and that's going to let you add a new instance. So we can look for the particular things that we want. As Jackie noted, you can look for tags. You can do quick search. Maybe I'm looking for that log roll. Just type in the word, and there we go. We've only got so many options. We select the one we want. Now that we have a goal in here, let's actually throw a few more goals in here. Let's do this one, and we're going to do shape jumps. Okay, so now that we have some goals in our goal group, we now get to make a few more decisions about what's really required here. In our first goal group, we have 3 goals. Now, if we want, we can specify that some of these are required. And actually, just to make this a little bit more clear, I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back into first eval. There we go. So now I have my 3 goals. I've saved this, and now I have a very clear-cut track pass only column and required column. Now, if I want to track past only, as we sort of talked about with that true false option, if I don't want to navigate to that attempted, if I just want to skip over attempted, I can say track past only, and this way it's either going to be you did or you didn't do it. If I leave these boxes unchecked, it's you did or didn't do it, or you tried. So you can do that if you want. You also have the option to specify required. So maybe out of these 3 options here, you have to absolutely do a log roll, but the other 2 are kind of optional. Maybe you can do one or the other, or maybe you only need to do the log roll and to say you pass, what have you. You can specify that these are actually required in order to complete our first goal group here. Beyond that, however, you can also edit the goal group, and you can specify that there are required goals, a required goal count within this system. So maybe I'm going to set this to 2. And what this does is 2 out of these 3 goals are required. And furthermore, this log roll is also required. So 2 out of these 3 goals are required, and 1 of those goals has to be log roll because this is required. So then this makes these 2 optional for me. And you can, of course, do this on any scale. Even if you have 20, 30, whatever goals within this goal group, you can absolutely scale that up appropriately and say, out of this group of 20 goals, you only need to do 15, and 10 of these ones are mandatory. The other 5 that you do can be any of these the remaining 10. So that is a great way to control what people need to do in your group here. Now, when someone passes this group, when someone actually completes this, it may be true to say that they've successfully completed another element within your system. For instance, if I complete our first goal group, it might be true to say that I've passed a grade. Maybe I've completed a badge or a ribbon just because I've completed this. Now, if that's true, what you'll want to do is edit this goal group, and you'll want to tag that item right here. And again, like any other area where you're tagging, hover over this question mark icon to learn more. So tag each category level or achievement, so things that you can complete, that could be considered completed by also completing the goals within this goal group. So for instance, let's actually take a look at another evaluation. Let's do Burgundy. So here in our Burgundy evaluation, we have a floor goal group, and we have the goals within our floor goal group. And when we edit this, it's possible that by completing these goals within this goal group, that I could have obtained my Burgundy badge. So I've tagged my Burgundy badge here. Now, it might also be true to say that I've done my Burgundy category level. Maybe that was the last thing I needed to do. And so by completing it, I've completed Burgundy as a whole. So I can also tag that here. Now I'm actually going to remove this because we're going to see what this does later on in just a moment. But that is why you may want to tag, and we'll see that in action too, and that'll probably make a little bit more sense once it's compared side by side. Excellent. So once you have all of your goal groups, and once you've added goals to those goal groups, you're ready to hit save, and you now have a completed evaluation. Congratulations, you've done it. And now that you have a completed evaluation, you can begin to utilize this evaluation on your system. Now this is done through the dashboard. Now your coaches and instructors, generally speaking, they're going to have access to the dashboard here, and they'll also need access to the participant information in order to access these evaluations successfully. Through the dashboard here, you can then see this calendar, and you can access any event that's on this calendar. To do so, you simply click on the event itself, and you can either select evaluations or attendance. We'll look at these in just a moment here. Alternatively, if you're a big club or maybe you've just got a lot of stuff going on in a day, you can also expand the Quick Start dashboard, and you'll see today's events listed here. They'll also be color-coded based off of what's coming up, what's really, really close. So here we can see this is coming up next because it's after 6 here. And so I know that this is my next class and I can focus on that one, knowing that I'm the coach or instructor of that. If you are a coach or instructor and you have been assigned to a goal group or a particular program or a participant within that program, you'll also see an indicator on the left-hand side here to indicate that, yeah, you know what, this is the one that you should be focused on. So it's often the case, especially with gymnastics clubs, that they'll have a lot of programs that are named the same. You can see, we've got a lot of men's and women's stuff in here. These are all at least different enough to sort of differentiate, but you might have a men's advanced and then a men's advanced too. And those are both happening at the same time, but there's different coaches for those classes. And so that little indicator will be a key factor in knowing exactly where you're supposed to be going. From this menu, you can select the evaluate option here for the program. You can select to take attendance, or you can print off the attendance printouts. If you are focused on the entirety of all these programs at once, you can also print all of today's attendance just from this button right here. You don't have to go one by one. Similarly, this evaluations button and the attendance button essentially emulates what you can do when you click on this event. You can evaluate or you can take attendance. If I take attendance from the dashboard here, it's going to show me everyone who's involved. It's going to give me some information about the program. If there are coaches assigned, it'll also show the coaching listing here, and I can mark off who's actually attended, and I can add some comments. It's important to note that the comments at this level during the attendance are actually only for instructors and those that are actually performing the evaluation. These won't show up to the end user. You will have the opportunity to do that if you'd like to, so be mindful of that. You can add those comments. You'll also see indicators on the far left-hand side here, these A's, to let you know who's in arrears, as that pop-up just suggested there. So I know that Tony, his parents, haven't paid recently. So, there might be some actions that your club wants to take. This indicator does actually require a special permission. So if you don't want your coaches and instructors to see that financial information, you don't have to give them that permission, and they won't see this indicator. Beyond actually taking attendance, which is just this checkbox here, you can also add guest participants by simply selecting this option here and beginning to type a name in and selecting whomever you'd like. Those will be indicated by this little star icon here, so you know who is just in this one particular class and not within the entirety of the program. Of course, we can remove that as well. Now, when you're happy with the attendance that you've taken, you can select take attendance. You can come back to this attendance and take this attendance as often as you want. But there's also another way to take attendance on a program beyond the way up that's in the quick start option here. You can also select the event from the calendar and choose to evaluate. When you evaluate, this brings you to, if you haven't done it already, the attendance tab. So it forces you to take attendance before you can evaluate, because obviously they need to be here in order to accomplish things. So this way we can utilize this tab and we can perform our attendance. Let's just say everyone's here today. When we're happy with that, we're going to select take attendance. As soon as you take attendance, it brings you to the evaluations tab, which I'm going to scroll up here, and you can see the evaluations tab versus the attendance tab. You'll also see on this page some basic information about the program, very much like what we saw on the attendance tab. And so to not overwhelm you too much, we're going to start from the top and work our way down. When I select the evaluations tab here, the first thing I'm greeted by is my current evaluation. This is a burgundy evaluation, but we can utilize this dropdown to select any other evaluation that this program has access to. So you can see I only have access to 3 evaluations, but if we go back to our evaluations page, there's a ton of evaluations here. So that was based off of the fact that I didn't tag these to be specific to the category or category level that this program resides in. So there's a lot of programs here that are tagged with things like Can Gym, but if we go to Burgundy Badge, this includes that kids category that we know that this kids program is a part of, and thus it is in this dropdown. So after I've selected the evaluation that I want to perform, I'm then greeted by 2 other dropdowns. And these allow me to control the view of all this information here, because it's a lot to take in, especially at first. So this is a great way to control what you're looking at. The first is going to be the goal groups. Now, when we were creating our evaluation, I'm going to go into the Burgundy so we can see this side by side here. There we go. So when we were speaking about creating our evaluations, we have our goal groups, and within each goal group, we have our goals. So maybe I want to focus down on just one of these goal groups. That's exactly what this filter does. It allows me to select one of the goal groups or even an individual goal and focus down on that list. So that way I'm not, cluttered, I'm not cluttering my screen. I can see exactly what I'm focusing on with my participants. Similarly, the evaluating option here allows me to do the same thing, but for the participants. So I'm going to return this back to everything, and I'm going to use this to select one of my participants or one of my groups, or one of my participant groups here. We created that at the very, very beginning. Oops, I went to the wrong page. We created these groups at the very beginning. We sort of did a refresher about how program grouping works. And we did that through this view icon here. And on this page, we actually created new groups. We created our blue and our red group, and we dragged and dropped people into various groups. And that's what dictates this drop-down list here. So if you have multiple instructors or coaches that are actually performing evaluations, maybe you have some tablets, like all this stuff is mobile friendly, so maybe you have some tablets on the floor or the ice. Maybe I, as an instructor, am only really worried about blue group. I'm going to filter down to blue group, and now I only see those who are in this blue group here. Similarly, I'm focused on blue group and floor activities. So now I'm really refined my view, and now I can focus on the participants and the activities that are meaningful to me on this particular event.
So we've, sorry, Garrett.
That's okay, go ahead.
I apologized again. I'm really trying not to do that. I honestly am. So just to give you a bit of background in terms of, why we've designed things with all of these different options and whatnot is we actually sat down with, a lot of different skating clubs and, have looked at different gymnastics clubs as well, and noticed we want to give you tools so that you can, first of all, divide up your classes based off of your ratios. So you might be working with, a 1:6 ratio or a 1:10 ratio. That gives you the option to divide up your program registrations into, smaller program groups to work with the program ratios that you actually want to work with to deliver the best possible program as possible. The best possible program as possible. Yep. So the other element that we also noticed was a lot of different clubs, when they're actually delivering this program, they're either working either in a circuit, or they're working with very specific elements, or working in specific areas, whether it be on the ice or in the rink or in the on your floor in your gymnasium. And so we've set it up so that you can either work on all of these goals all at once, or maybe you're just working in circuits. So you're just focusing down on one specific goal, or you're just doing floor routines first. And these are the 4 elements that we're working on. So we've given you all these drop downs and all these abilities to break everything down so that your coaches have just the pieces that they need in front of them to work on these very specific elements. So you have quite a bit of flexibility, just even evaluating a single individual, a single goal, or a group of goals, or a group of students that you're working with. So.
Sorry, could you repeat all that?
Serious?
Thank you so much, Jackie. Fantastic. So the next thing that we're going to see here is the legend. Now, along the legend, very similar to any legend that you've ever seen on maps, etc. This will let you know what all these lovely icons mean, because there's an absolute ton of them on here. So it's hard to memorize all these all at once. But so this will let you know what's going on here. Below that, we are also going to see the goal group that we've selected. Now, I'm actually going to unfocus our goal group here, so that we're seeing all of our goal groups. So here we have floor, bars, beams, and this is exactly what we're seeing in our evaluation: floors, bars, beams. I'm actually going to bring these, I don't know why I undid that. I'm going to bring these side by side again. So we see floor, bars, beams, floor, bars, beams. And what we'll also see along the top here is a title header for the actual evaluation. And as we scan across here, we'll see all the participants that are in here. But we'll also see that for each goal group header. So floor, and we see the same participants, bars, the same participants, etc. Among these headers, we'll see these icons here. And some of these are highlighted and some of these aren't. And you might be asking yourself, Why? Well, so let's take a look at these in more detail. This star icon indicates achievements. Achievements can be accomplished through the evaluations page, perhaps by performing certain things. And we talked a little bit about tagging our goal groups in order to specify that, you know what, if I completed floor, I might have completed burgundy badge in total. So by going into the floor goal group and hitting this edit icon, I've tagged burgundy badge the achievement, and thus under floor, under the achievement icon, I now have access to immediately applying the burgundy badge achievement to this participant's profile. So that gives me very, very fast access to say, you know what, Abigail, you did a great job today and you achieved your burgundy badge, and now she has that burgundy badge achieved. Congratulations. Similarly, you'll also have the ability to do so for category levels. Now you see this one isn't actually here. This one won't highlight. Nothing pops up when I hover over it or I tap on it if I'm on a mobile device. So we go back to our evaluation here, and I'm going to select Burgundy, the category level, and hit save, and save this, and refresh all this. And now that I've done that, I have this category level highlighted, and Abigail very, very quickly could have achieved her entire burgundy badge, the category level. And thus, I can mark that off and say, congratulations, you've completed everything today. You did a wonderful job. Now, it's kind of odd to do that before having done these goals, but it's just an example, of course. Now, if you do want to mark these goals, we can mark these off. That's no problem. Just quick check boxes. You can do the whole class all at once with these guys right here. And we have our attempted marker here, this /. You can go back to not attempted as well. Now, again, if you do want to only toggle between attempted and not attempted, or sorry, my apologies, completed and not completed, you can mark off this track passed only here. Now, these icons here, they're also in the category, sorry, the evaluation header as well, but as you can see, they're not highlighted. This is because we haven't tagged these as available through the actual evaluation itself. Now, in this link to section at the top of the evaluation, when we were creating our evaluation, we talked about what should go here, and really this should be every category or category level that has access to this evaluation. So among these, we have kids, and so we can use this Burgundy evaluation because we're a kids program. But it might also be true to say that by completing this entire evaluation, they've succeeded at something. Maybe they've completed their Burgundy badge achievement, or maybe they've completed their Burgundy badge category level. And by adding it to this section here, this link section, and saving it, we've now associated those achievements and category levels to this evaluation as a whole. And thus, when I refresh this page here, I now have the ability to access these, there we go, from the header as well, from the evaluation header, sorry. So now I can access those from the top or from each one of these goal group options. So depending on, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, continue. I'll jump in when you finish your thought.
Depending on where you want your coaches and instructors to have access to these items, you may discern that tagging in particular areas may not be fruitful for you. Maybe you don't want to have all these buttons cluttered in one area here, so maybe you don't want to have these items tagged and just rely on these goal group taggings instead. And Jackie, over to you.
Thanks, Garrett. So we've given clubs multiple options to tag either at the goal group level or at the entire evaluation level. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, do I have to actually tag every single goal group and every single full evaluation? No, you don't. We've provided you with all of those tools in case you want to use them. So in the case of probably a lot of gymnastics clubs, you might not be tagging each of the individual goal groups because you don't care necessarily that a gymnast has completed just the floor elements of the Burgundy badge or just the bar elements of the Burgundy badge. Whereas, for example, in a sport like skating, with the Learn to Skate program, you want to actually provide each of the different goal groups are typically a ribbon. So you have agility, balance, control, and you have level 1 through 6, and each of those are an individual ribbon. So we want to give you the ability to grant that achievement of that ribbon. when they complete each of those individual groups, but then also give them the ability to pass an entire category level if they actually achieve all those elements. So this gives you the ability to sort of pivot your data and allow you to assign different achievements and different completion of category levels depending on how you want to actually divide up your goals and your goal groups into your evaluations. And it's really up to you as a club that the world is your oyster, and we've tried to give you as many different options here, but as well cover off the basis of being able to check off these goals, check off these skills, make sure they've completed them, be able to give you very easy monikers to determine if they have completed enough of those required goals. One of the things that you'll notice is that right beside floor it says 0/4, which means in this case they don't need to achieve any of them to complete that group. But if you actually change that to 3 or 2 or whatnot, some of these icons won't actually change or appear to prompt your coaches to actually grant the achievement until they've actually achieved those elements. So here you see with the floor, you need 3 of 4, and it isn't until you actually click those elements that it actually tells you, yes, they are eligible to receive the Burgundy badge. So, and you can do that with the different goal groups that you've got set up here. So, Garrett, I'll let you continue on there.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jackie. And the last icon that we didn't take a look at is this little guy right here. This is the notes icon. This is actually the same comment section that we saw when we were performing attendance and will not be presented to the user at the time of their viewing these evaluations. All right, so that is a lot of information. Basically, what's going to happen is
Actually, I'm going to correct you on that.
It's not
Sorry.
a lot of information?
No. Well, it is. It is. I believe those comments are actually the ones that will be used, that can be used when you're actually publishing the evaluation. Am I wrong? I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. Well, now I'm embarrassed. Okay.
Okay.
So there we are.
Yeah, so for example, why don't you add a little note to Abigail saying that Abigail, tripped doing her floor, or Abigail stubbed her toe, doing the floor routine or something like that. Okay, so
Yeah, I'm gonna be thinking about it.
so when you actually go to publish the evaluation, I don't know if you've saved yet. Have you saved? Yeah, there we go.
haven't talked about saving, Jackie.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
For all of you out there, please save. Always save your evaluations. So one thing to also keep in mind on that note is that we've designed Uplifter so that you might have multiple coaches working with the same class all at the same time, because they're working with different groups of participants. We've made it so that everybody can sort of save the different goals that they are working on with their participants. So keep that in mind. We just want to make sure that there's no collisions or whatnot when you have multiple coaches, coaching the same kids. So, but if you actually go to publish, Abigail, I'm not sure if it's here, it's on the next one. Yeah, click on publish. Oh, no, for Abigail.
Oh, sorry, I see what you're doing. My apologies.
Right. See, yeah. So what happens is, let's say you are evaluating a group of students, and each week you put in a little note. When it comes time to publish these evaluations, and you can actually set it up so that your members don't see the evaluations until they're actually published. What Uplifter will do is it will actually concatenate all the different comments that you've added for this particular evaluation since the last time that you've published it. And it'll concatenate them all together so that you can actually just remove them, add them, summarize that the way that you would like, and add a very specific comment if you'd like when you actually go to publish. And that, when you publish, Garrett, do you want to show us? This probably doesn't go at all with the flow of what you were going to do.
We had a plan.
We had a plan. Okay, I'll let you continue, and then I'll just interject.
Oh yeah, so fantastic. So yes, I hit publish there. So I hit save. Now what's important to note is when you hit save, that doesn't mean it's publicly accessible. Your end user doesn't have access to it, at least by default. And Jackie had mentioned that there is the ability to allow them to see that. That is what this checkbox does. So when I hit save, right now, Bill Jr., doesn't have access to this information that he completed these goals because I haven't published this. But if I were to mark this off and hit save, even if I don't publish Bill Jr.'s information, he can still log into the system and still see those evaluation results. Generally speaking, it's probably best practice to have that intermediate section or intermediary section where you can have users or coaches or admins or whomever review the information and then publish.
It's really up to you as an organization. I know that there are lots of clubs out there that don't want the parents to see what the child has done every week. They don't want these helicopter parents, walking in and saying, I saw that. I saw my child do that log roll. Why didn't you give them the check mark? Whereas, the club might be instead sort of evaluating on like 4 or 6 week period. And after those 4 or 6 weeks, they collect sort of all the check marks that they've completed over those 4 or 6 weeks. And then they publish at one time, and that's when they actually get to see all of those goals and what it is that child has completed. So then that way it allows you to sort of distribute that information, have a bit more control as to when you distribute that information and how you distribute that information. Go ahead, Garrett.
You also reminded me of the log roll. I forgot about this. We're going to
Yes,
go
the
back to the
log
log roll.
roll.
When you are focused on a particular goal, so if you do want to sort of demonstrate to your participants how to perform something, you can focus down on that goal and you'll now have this option here. And when you click on it, you will see the full description. And in this case, it is a gentleman performing a log roll, letting us know exactly how to do that. So you can absolutely do that on any one of your goals within the evaluation and have that information really quickly accessible to your coaches and instructors. Fantastic. So you might be wondering, we published Abigail's evaluation. What happens now? Well, now that it's published, we can let Abigail know, or she might be very attentive. She might be logging into her system, waiting and champing at the bit there. She can log into her personal profile and view that information. We can see exactly what she's going to be seeing as well by going to her participant profile as well. So this is Abigail's participant profile. By selecting her name from the evaluation, it brings us right to her evaluations menu option. And in this list here, we see there's 2 published evaluations, and it's also summarized by program. So if she is actually part of multiple programs, you can see the progression she's obtained through each program individually if you'd like, or on particular evaluations. So as Jackie noted, you might be sort of piling things on into one evaluation across multiple things, across multiple programs. That's totally fine. In this particular instance, we just have one program. So here we can go into our Burgundy badge. And when we select that, it's going to show us our results. And we can see here, not only did we accomplish those goals, but we can also see that she's accomplished the badge achievement and the badge category level. And one more time, we also have the ability for them to see what exactly did they have to do for that. You can see the information for that as well.
So once your participants have actually completed these evaluations and you want to, once you've published them or allowed them to view, what you can do is you can actually send out a mass email using our email communication tool to the class and say, we've published the report cards for the first month of the Kids Tumbling 101 program. Just go into your family account, go to your participant's profile, click on the evaluations link and view the results of your child's evaluation, and that way you reduce all that paper clutter being sent back and forth to getting lost in the change room, and you can ensure that the parents receive that information and get to it directly from their account, and you're not reprinting those report cards over and over and over again. They can just simply go onto their account and see that information there. If you would like to print, though, we actually have provided a printer-friendly version of this. It's that Garrett has.
Forcing you to talk about printing.
Yeah, I like how you guide my my discussions by cursoring and hovering over elements on the screen. So yes, you can certainly provide a printed version of this if you would like. But we're trying to be eco-friendly here, so having them log on to their accounts and looking on the evaluations tab is one of the best ways to get to that. A couple of things too. You'll notice the little history icon. You will have seen that here, and as well on the evaluation page. This actually provides provides you with exactly who marked these achievements. So that gives you quite a bit of accountability as a club to ensure these are the coaches that are actually marking this individual for these elements. So that way, if you have a situation where you have maybe some counselors in training, coaches in training, program assistants in the skating world, and then you have, the actual coaches that come around and actually see how it is that they're doing things. The coach can actually review and say, oh, this coach tends to, be very lenient on this person, or as a head coach, you may maybe with that child watching them do the particular skill and say, this child isn't quite there. Why does it say that this person has, completed this 3 times in the last, in the last month? You can go back to that coach and maybe make some corrections in terms of what it is that you would like to see as far as a program delivery goes for your club. So lots of different options as well. One of the other elements that you can do is if you want to restrict some of your coaches from being able to grant those achievements and category levels, you can actually restrict that in the permissions. If they don't actually have the permission to actually edit the participants' details, they won't be able to grant that achievement or grant that or grant the category levels. Actually, I think it's just the achievements, isn't it, Garrett?
Yeah, just the achievements.
Yeah, it's just the achievements. So then that way they can say, I'd like to give them this achievement, and then somebody who does have access to actually editing the participants can go through and approve those achievements so that you can have a little bit of a tighter control as to how you actually deliver those goals or those achievements through the participants. So a couple of different options there. I was going to say something. Oh, as well, I know that especially in the skating world, we've had a lot of clubs come to us and say, is it really feasible for us to be doing this with iPads on the ice or iPads on the floor? So minimum requirements, you need to make sure that you have solid internet wherever it is that you're actually accessing this. Uplifter is very mobile friendly, so you can, reduce this down to make it look like, so that you can actually see that on a tablet. We've made the icons set so that an iPad mini is a good sort of minimum requirement in order to be able to click through and click off those check marks and whatnot. But a couple of different elements that you might want to consider. We've had some clubs that have maybe they have a coach, and then they have volunteer coaches. Maybe your 12-year-olds, your coaches in training. For skating, you have your program assistants that are assisting you on the ice. What you might want to do is let the coach, show them how to do the skills, and have that younger coach or that coach in training shadowing them with the iPad and having them actually check elements off, so that you're not sitting there trying to fumble with an iPad while also trying to coach your kids and do that. So depending on the resources that you have available, it's a great way to have some of those up and coming kids that are looking to become coaches later on, get them involved and help and have them help the main coaches actually deliver your programs for you and mark these things off. So we're just at our 60-minute mark. I'm sorry, I just had to say all of those elements. Do you have more things to say? I think one thing that we did miss was the importing. So I don't know if you want to talk about that at all,
Yes,
or
we
if you
did.
have anything else that you want to
Yeah,
go
let's
over.
talk about that really, really quickly. So to import, you want to navigate back to your evaluations page. So settings, evaluations, and you'll have the import option along the toolbar here. By selecting this option here, you'll be able to import your desired evaluation. And the list that you see here will be dependent on your affiliation. So if you're a CanGym affiliated, you'll see the CanGym stuff. If you're Skate Canada affiliated, you'll see the Skate Canada stuff. And so you can select the evaluation you want to import. As you can see here for CanGym, we have 2 different variations. You may want to import one version of each. Check out the evaluations, see what you prefer, because one is going to be a check mark, yes or no. The other is going to have the 3 tiers, which I think one of them is mastered. I'm having a brain fart here. Something mastered. And so you can mark those off with those grades if you prefer. Once you select the evaluation to import, you can specify the link to, again, this is going to be the category and or category levels that should have access to this evaluation. So you type in whatever you want. This is going to be a CanGym specific evaluation, for instance, and then I'm going to hit save. And by hitting save, not only does this generate the evaluation within my system, but it also brings in all of the goals that are part and parcel to that evaluation. So I don't have to make those myself. Once you've performed that, if you do want to have access to all those bells and whistles, those fun little buttons and stuff like that, which I think I've lost my page now. Yes, I have. So all those little fun little buttons in terms of quick access to achievements and category levels, which we saw with Abigail, you'll want to perform the import and then you'll want to edit that evaluation. We try our best to make absolutely everything as automated as possible, but we're not 100% certain how you may have named certain things or how your curriculum is structured. So in that instance, once you've performed this evaluation import, you might want to come back here and edit these goal groups in order to make sure that they're tagged as you want them to be tagged, if you even want them to be tagged at all. As Jackie noted, sometimes you don't care. So tag what you want to tag, make sure that the track passed and required numbers are all there as you want them to be, and just have a quick review of that and hit save. And of course, with anything with an uplifter, it's always handy to test just to make sure everything's functioning exactly how you'd like it to. And that is everything. We actually hit pretty on the mark there. That is unusual for us. That's everything that I have. Jackie, anything you'd like to add?
No, other than as Garrett mentioned, I know that we're repeating ourselves, but just for any of those clubs that are with one of our affiliated partners, we do have the LTD programs, the Learn to Skate and the Can Gym programs available for import. But you do have to be affiliated with one of those organizations that is one of our partners in order to actually be able to import those. If you ever have questions about how to maybe customize your evaluations and your goals more to the learning structure of your club, always don't hesitate to contact us at support. We can certainly give it some thought in terms of how to help you structure elements. We've actually had some skating clubs actually come to us, import the Can Skate program, and realize they actually want to pivot how the agility, balance, and control works based on the levels, and we've actually pivoted elements of the evaluations for them and provided different guidance in terms of how to make that work. So yeah, so thank you very much for joining us for evaluations. It was a very meaty webinar, but a topic that's near and dear to our hearts because it's one of the core elements of Uplifter, to be able to track our athletes and track the individuals that are working through Uplifter. So anything else that you'd like to add, Garrett?
Always. Yes, just one last element. Please be on the lookout for our Learning Center if you have questions or concerns. We'll also have this webinar up on the Learn Uplifter webinars page here, so keep an eye out for that. Or you can join our YouTube channel if you want to watch it on YouTube if you prefer that. We look forward to having you on our next webinar next Wednesday, which is public website management. We'll talk about how to make your site look all kinds of pretty. And then that will be the last one for our current series.
We'll be adding additional webinars on following Wednesdays, but they're actually going to be just a little bit of a different format. We're going to concentrate on shorter pieces, very specific use cases or neat things that we'd like to show off within Uplifters. So we'll still be here on Webinar Wednesdays, but we'll probably have a little bit of a different slant. So if you have been enjoying our webinar series, please stay tuned and join us after the first batch is done. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.